first I want to look at the past, or what is it that has really, that you have found useful in 52 Living Ideas? What kinds of meetups, you can talk, anything that you found useful, not just a single meetup, but like a series of meetups, a pattern. So we're trying to identify patterns that have worked for folks. And then we want to look at, the future. But first I want to look at the past. So Evanik, what meetups have you really found useful?
So I found the Tao Te Ching to be very useful. I think that was, accessible and relatable, and you could like take those teachings and add it to your everyday life.
Mhm.
I think Jason and Aman both doing the historical background of, that was helpful too. So I did love the Tao Te Ching and the historical. I also loved the Gita.
Mhm.
Um, when I started, I didn't think it would. I was interested, but I didn't know how applicable it would be because I never studied it.
Mhm.
So I thought that one was the most impactful for me because I think, we studied it so deeply with
Can I
Yagesh.
interrupt you just for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to tell people what we're doing. Hi, Maritza. Hi, Judy. Hi, Sarah. So, folks, what we're trying to do is that we're going to have a conversation about what meetups you have found very useful in the past. So we'll talk about past first, because we'll try to get patterns of what is it that has really, that people have found very useful. And then after everybody has had, let everybody speak their mind, just want to hear what has really helped you and what you have found useful and interesting. And then we will talk about the future. So because the past will actually show us some patterns. And then maybe kind of parts of future will appear from the past itself, will suggest itself, and people can come up with new things which will be able to check against the past. Okay, so it's going to be a highly inductive kind of a process. I don't know what the results are going to be because we don't know what results of induction are. So we're going to do that. So I'll just call on people one by one, and just so just think about what is it that you found useful in whichever way you want to characterize it. First, we are just going to look at the past, and then in the second section we'll look at the future. Okay, so Evanik, sorry about the interruption. Please go on.
No worries. So yes, I found the Gita to be very useful because I think Yogeshwar took it in a way that made it practical, and because I think he applies it to his life, it's the way he lives. It made it. He can make it very relatable to everybody else and to use real world examples. I think that the most important thing I learned throughout 52 Living Ideas is looking at different religious studies, the Gospel of John, the Gita, the Tao, even Stoicism to an extent, that you can notice the patterns, like universal truths that, that the divine or higher power is within yourself. I think those were common themes, it being inside of you and it coming and, your intentions coming out of you, focusing on the person that you strive to be. Um, you know, uh, and I think all of those teachings also taught us how to live in the world practically and not like separate yourself off from the world. I think a lot of people try to just kind of section themselves off the world and say the world is bad. And I don't think any of these teachings really teach us that the world is bad. It's just that you can't be influenced by everybody. And I think it also helps when you're focused on teachings, like to follow which one speaks to you. I think that was a common theme as well. Um, not every teaching had to speak to you, but every teaching had the same meaning in that find what works for you and find that and study that out, study it more, um, take it to that next level. And I think the deeper dives, like the longer series, I think were very helpful because you really got to take a deeper dive into a study. rather than just kind of cover the surface. So in general, I like the deeper studies of 52 Living Ideas, where it's a series. And even if you can't make every one, it's great to just kind of, dive deep with a group of people that you really get to know in the process. So those were my favorite ones.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Evanique. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to keep notes of everything, even, not just the specific things that people are saying, what they liked, but kind of kinds of things and what kinds of things you're getting, like applicability or universal principles, long series versus short series. So I'm trying to keep track of everything that everybody's saying as best as I can, and then we will go ahead and bring it together. So next up, let's go with Judy, followed by Maritza. Judy, what?
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. It's been a wonderful whatever years I am with you, because everything that you do is great for me. I think that I love more than anything that has to do with learning, anything that has to do with virtues. Also, I love the series on virtues. The Sanjay neuroscience was also very important for me, especially when it was linked to learning. So that's what I can remember with best intentions to continue studying and to remember always these comprehensivism types of teachings that you have given us the opportunity to learn from.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Maritza.
So for me, overall, I like where we make connections with, a few of the different topics. But I will say, near and dear to me of past meetup, because based on the question you just asked, is Louis Sullivan. And it might be a little biased there because it was my introduction to Louis Sullivan. So I was just like mind blown. And I will say, of everything I've done with you, Shrikant, and everyone else, that has been the most like mind shifting for me, was Louis Sullivan. But I will say that the format we used for maps of meaning, I really, really appreciated. It was, where we were going through the book, but we also had videos that worked in tandem. And then when we were together, we would discuss what we believed it meant. And it would be like reframed to match today's world and take it out of the realm of the academic, which I thought was very helpful. And then going around and having people say what they got out of it. The Maps of Meaning series was just, I think it was just beautifully and expertly done. I really did like that, the way we did that. Right now I'm drawing a blank on, we did another one in a similar fashion, but it was just that style I really like that we did. I think it might be like most of the Jordan Peterson ones were similar. We do the just the way we synthesize things. So that those two probably would, the formatting and the way that the data came out probably would be my favorites. But I've also enjoyed whenever you do the like some syntopic style ones. We've done just a few of them, but I really like it. And so those are the past ones. And that's the only question I'm supposed to be answering right now, right?
Right now, we're just looking at the past ones. Let everybody talk about the past ones first.
All right. Well, let me stop with those then.
So we'll go, we just have a conversation going back, we'll go through this multiple times.
Okay.
And you're also, Maritza and Evanique, you're also, please go ahead and keep your notes and try to, because this is, you, both of you and Joe are critical part of this whole enterprise. And I really appreciate, all the feedback from you. So anything I end up doing, I always run it by all of you. So all three of you, because that gives me like a corrective mechanism. So keep your notes, and then I'll come to you at various points, and then we can, have you chime in as well. So, all right, let's go. Let's see who would like to share. It's Sarah. I'm just going to go in the order in which people are coming in. And
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Sure. So I don't think I've attended every single one that you guys have done in the past, but I can say that.
Difficult, Sarah, because we have done 1,500 so far.
Oh my gosh, I
Yes.
did not know that. Okay,
Yes.
congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So personally, in college, I double majored in political science and philosophy. So I'm partial to philosophical pursuits. And I appreciate the ones where we've discussed how we can incorporate that into our personal lives. So I'm a big fan of existentialism. I know there's a lot of critiques with it. I know there's a lot of problems and loopholes with the whole philosophy itself. But the idea, and even I think one of the classes previously where we talked about God is within us, and we hold certain like self controlling power really within our own selves to create, to live a life we want. And I like how we can incorporate that concept into actually everyday living and our personal lives. So those are that's the ones that really stick out at me when I think about which meetups I've attended with you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Next up is going to be Kevin. Kevin, which meetups have you found particularly useful?
Yes, thank you. I find out the ones they used to be comprehensivity with bucket fuller. Oh, we also managed the polymath. That time then we, then others. Every topic is amazing. I learned from different piece from Jordan Peterson and Sanjay. Yeah, yourself actually. I like everybody like your diagram. Yeah. So that's
Wonderful.
5 days for now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Next up is Kimberly, followed by Oscar. Kimberly, what meetups have you found particularly useful?
Well, I'm kind of biased, but I like the one around Flo and Dr. Mike because I love Flo. So that was one of my, I go by topic more by, but I do like the comprehensivity and Bucky and, and then you've lined up Kurt McNamara, who's a good colleague of mine here
Oh,
in
wow.
Minnesota. And I like Kurt. I love how he does mind maps because it explains things so much when you do those mind maps. Because he organizes things at a local level here with a little innovation group. And it's just, you just get so much out of it, when he creates those mind maps. So, and then the last one is, and I'm embarrassed to admit the name of the person, but Maritza, you know it, it's Ricard, the person that everybody just loved that passed on this last year.
Yes. CJ, yeah.
CJ. Yeah, CJ. Oh, that one was like so powerful.
Yes.
It was very powerful.
Yes.
So,
Yes. He has been an inspiration to everything that we've done. So thank you. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Next up is Oscar. Oscar, what have you found interesting and useful?
Good evening, everyone. So I like the ones where we dissect the Bible. I like hearing everyone's interpretation of the verses. Like to me, that's very informative. And that's pretty much it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. All right. So we've got first round of what we found useful. So it's a wide variety of things. And the so firstly, it's like many people who have attended many meetups, looks like they like a whole bunch. No, DLJ went first.
Oh,
Yeah. So there is a wide variety that people seem to like, and many times this comprehensivity, kind of connecting of things came up. Also, applicability, philosophical things, very deep things, and then applicable at the same time. Came up a lot. All right. So now let's just jump in. Let's go to the next question. What kind of meetups you would like to see in the future? Okay, so we are keeping it separate. We looked at the past, and I'm keeping the past separate, and then we're going to go and look at the future separately. I'll go about in the same order as I did the first time. So we'll start with DLJ. DLJ, what would you like to see? And don't get influenced by what other people are saying. Just speak what you want. Go ahead.
So for those who missed my little two pennies worth because I was early, I see two categories. One I'm calling Bible study, which is where people get together for more affirmation of and comfort and that kind of stuff, right? And there's the other one which is more critical. So I think the divine feminine and Sanjay stuff and all that kind of stuff fits into that second category a bit more. Gospel of John was a bit of both. It's good. So those were my two. And obviously I prefer, it's fairly obvious which one I prefer of those two, right? The ones that's going to challenge my own understanding of the world. So I'd like to see more of that. And I mentioned this the other night, right? So I'd love to see a session on I believe, where somebody comes and says, like, I'm a Jain. This is what Jains generally believe. This is the different varieties from different parts of the world. And I'm in this group. And then we get to say, well, why? All right. Or they tell us why, right? And then, of course, if you are going to do that, you've got to decide on the ground rules. Is this going to be a sharing, caring kind of session? Or is it going to be, are people going to be, you know, how hurt are they going to be if you then say, I don't think that's right because, right? So you've got to obviously set some ground rules on that one. Yeah, and if people want to say, I don't know, geolateralism, which is my favorite word for, I've invented that word when it means flat earth. So if they want to say flat earth is right because, then okay. And again, do we get to challenge it or not? That you've got to decide the ground rules on that. So yeah, just call it I believe ... and get whoever wants to present 5 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever you, again, the ground rules you set for that. You can do 10 in 2 hours, or one person doing a whole 2 hours. I don't mind. But anything that is going to challenge the way I think is what I look forward to. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, DLJ. Next up is Evanik. Evanik, what would you like to see?
I would like to see more deep dives into Stoicism. I know we did it. I know you guys did it earlier on, but I don't think I was a part of the group then. I would also, I think I would love to see what DLJ said too. You know, people coming in and talking about what they believe and why. You know, hearing people that deeply practice these different religions or just different practices in general, you know. I'm trying to think of what else. I think I would like to see more literature. I think, you know, we did the dive into Ayn Rand and the Fountainhead, and I would love to study her a little more. I would love to study. I know we did I was in Louis Sullivan for the autobiography, but I would love to see more Louis Sullivan and thinkers like that. You know, like, and I would like to see more book studies, like of, you know, great thinkers in past and present. You know, there's an author that I love, and it's Nadia. I'm gonna mispronounce the middle name. Is Nadia Bolets or something Weber? She has a book called Accidental Saints, and her studies, she goes and she like ministers to like people in prisons and different people like that, and she'll tell you that she was a wild child, and you know, and why she relates to people like her, and that she wants to I don't think it's necessary. I think she wants to bring the gospel in true form to those people, and she's a very interesting topic. So people like that. So I would love to see more things like that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Evanik. Next up is going to be Judy. Judy.
There are several areas that I'm interested in right now in my life. So I think I would like to continue seeing a little bit more of these areas. I'm very interested in brain learning and intuitive learning. And if they're connected with AI, the better. So anything with AI, I'd be really, really interested especially when it comes to brain learning and intuitive learning. I'm also interested in political situations going on all over the world, and some sort of 101 on what's going on and how we can become involved, if at all, and kind of getting more responsibility with the eco part of the world. I think I would like to know more about how to not feel so frustrated.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. Next up is Maritza.
I would like to see us tying together more intentionally some of the things we have already studied. I like the idea of gathering a couple different philosophers, like or philosophies, like maybe 3 at a time, and looking, like, say, for example, we're looking at Louis Sullivan and Jordan Peterson. None, these are just random, and then maybe Buckminster Fuller, and looking at those 3 together and seeing the similarities, seeing the differences, and how it's applicable in today's world. I think that it would help us grow and solidify some of these concepts within ourselves, so that we would, now it's not just words on paper, it becomes more alive, as it were. So that's just something that I was thinking that I would really enjoy seeing more, like maybe a syntopic style of a meeting or discussion. That was my first thought. Also, I think it would be kind of fun to have more hands-on. We just recently did a workshop. I think it was our first ever workshop here with Stroopy, and it was delightful. It would be a lot of fun to do that. It makes it so much easier to get some of our concepts, and I think it's the same. So I guess I'm on the same page here. I feel like we've been digesting all of these words. I'd like to see some of the words come out of the paper, out of the video, and into actuality. And so workshops would be another way, in addition to the syntopic style of events. So, and I'm gonna put one more kind of weird radical thing out there. I'd be interested in seeing how some things we haven't addressed might fit in with some of the things we have addressed, like astrology or astronomy. Those are philosophies in their own right that we haven't like directly tackled. I don't know if they would merit, or if it would be something to do meetups by themselves, but maybe that might also be something that would be in tandem with others. But I really would like to see the Louis Sullivan, how he fits in with several different of the things we have, like Gospel of John and Louis Sullivan, or something like that. So that would be the biggest. I'm also interested in other philosophers from maybe more sidelined is not the word, but maybe less popular, like indigenous peoples. We did the one comprehensive meetup on the Aborigines, but we have so many, there do exist indigenous philosophers. Something like that I think would be interesting to me to see. And again, with the mind of compare and contrast with what we've already been synthesizing, because that's kind of where my brain is these days. It's like I feel like in order to embrace this idea of comprehensive thinking, why I keep looking at them as one and one. So, and I think I had another, but I'll chime in later if I remember.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think you had mentioned math earlier. So I'm going to put in math also.
Perfect. Yes. I'd forgotten that that was a thought. I thought it would be really great to get more things to do with math and physics, or even like metaphysics or quantum physics would be fantastic.
I'll put it as math and science for now. Excellent. Now, 2 new people have come in, so I'm going to ask them the first question first, and then we'll continue. So Eleanor and Brian, we're asking 2 questions, one by one. So first question for you is, what meetups have you found the most useful? in 52 Living Ideas? So that's the first question which I'm posing to you. And then second question later on, when your turn comes, the second question that I will ask you is what kind of meetups you would like to see. So Eleanor, if you would share what meetups you have found useful.
Sorry, I'm working again.
Okay.
I found Gospel of John not bad. Also, Asian philosophies I enjoy, even if I never participate, I enjoy just listening to them. Actually, every meetup I love. There is nothing I don't love. I just enjoy to dial in and hang in there and listen to people. I'm less of a participator, so for me, it actually doesn't matter what you guys talk about. I'm gonna always listen to you. So poetry is the one where I participate the most, and I think it's just fun and entertaining. I also found Evangelique's meetup about women, female. I think there was something about women.
Yeah, divine feminine. Yeah.
Yes, divine feminine. So this one was good too. And I recently find the co-host very nice, who was doing with us Gospel of John together. I think it was yesterday here too. I forgot his name, but hopefully we'll get him back a little bit so he can bring new perspective. Hopefully he enjoys to talk to us. Yeah, everything is so far very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Next up is Brian. Brian, what meetups have you found useful?
Excuse me. The ones I found useful are all the ones I've attended, because the quality of all of them is very good. Things I would highlight as being particularly interesting to me. First one probably is, or used to be, the Asian philosophy meetup, which is proved to be very difficult for me now with time changes. It's very difficult for a Saturday 5 o'clock event. But the meetings on Buckminster Fuller have been very interesting, because he was one person whose name I knew, but knew nothing about him at all. And so it's been interesting to see what developed around him and get some more of his history and read some of the recommended books. So, but for most of the others, they've all been very useful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. All right. So now we will continue with the second question, which is what kind of meetups would you like to see? Next up is going to be Sarah. Sarah, what would you like to see?
Yeah, so I'm gonna agree with someone who just spoke a little bit earlier. I like the idea of getting great thinkers and their books. I like to, talk about different themes of the book and what resonates with people and how they've found, what parts of it they find profoundly intertwining with reality and nowadays, and how we can incorporate that into our own lives. So I'm a big fan of exploring the greatest thinkers of all time, and then hearing critiques and hearing how we can use those, philosophies or themes to better our own, perspectives and outlooks on life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Kevin. Kevin, what would you like to see?
Yes, thank you. Actually, Marisa just mentioned some of what I would see. Follow her track is mathematics, some pattern. It's not just work for math, or physics, or science. It's also, if you apply to the philosophy or thinker, if it as makes sense, I trust more. Something if, for example, false lots talk or we believe it maybe possible false binary. So I would like is comparative study. For example, we got a different religion God. If we can have one room, put a discussion panel, just share, no argument or no judgment. Then you go to another level, you could be doing that. and from multiple perspectives. Every time people speak different ways, I inspire myself. I'm gonna say, and also what we believe. How about an outside world? Anything we consider is certain, make judgment can be paradox or false. So that's why we need to know the different background, culture, the time, why they think that way, promote that the book idea behind. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Next up is going to be Kimberly. Kimberly, go ahead.
So I kind of agree with Vanik about kind of blending some Stoicism in, because I belong to the Minnesota Stoics group and they're really active. But one of the main organizers questioned me one day, because a DLJ would like this, is that he said, Kim, and this person's not a Christian anymore, but he grew up Christian. He goes like, how can you still be a Christian and practice Stoicism? He doesn't, and I don't see them as mutually exclusive. But, and so I just explained it to him and he goes like, well, thank you for telling me that or sharing that with me. And also, I mean, it's kind of the yin and the yang. It's like the black and the white, and they all work together, And then kind of related to that too is, I just love C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis started out as an atheist, and then he met J.R. Tolkien, and then he changed. So I thought that I think that's really interesting. And then I like Maritza's comments about physics and metaphysics, because I love physics and metaphysics. I think it's just the most wonderful thing to study and to learn about. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. Let me see here. Give me just a second. I'm just making notes here. All right. Next up is Sarah. We'll come to it. We'll go back in turns. We're just going round and round. We'll come back for the second round. But if there is something really on your mind that you would like to add, go ahead and do that. Go ahead.
I mean, you can go through everyone first,
Okay,
and then I'll
let's
let
do
you
that.
know, because I just wanted to add a little something to
no,
it. So,
absolutely.
okay.
We'll get plenty of chance to add. The aim here is to get everybody's thoughts on the table, and just keep going round and round. We'll have multiple rounds, so don't worry. You'll have plenty of opportunity to add more things.
Perfect.
Next up is going to be Oscar. Oscar, go ahead.
Okay, so this is going to be somewhat different, but my idea is to have a meetup where people in the audience would be able to share their words of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
But besides doing that, I want them to explain, what was the struggle and how did they get to that point of realizing, how did they get to that point of the wisdom where, it started working out for them? So it could be anything, it could be relationships, finance, job, whatever. So basically something like that. Now, I'm guessing the person is going to have to be vulnerable, but I think that's a good thing, because if someone in the audience is also struggling with the same thing, it may help them out. It could be inspirational. So that's pretty much my idea.
Wonderful. Love it. These are excellent ideas, folks. So we're going to keep going around, but Joe has showed up. So we're going to, Joe, we are doing two passes. So you're the only one who has not answered the first question. So I'm going to ask you the first question, which is, what meetups have you found most useful? I don't know how, but you've attended more of my meetups than I have. But tell me what you found useful.
They all have add their value, in one way or another. But if you're talking about the most useful, I think you have to look at ones that are series that we've continued and dove very deeply into them. And that would be the Gita, as well as Gospel of John, and as well as the Tao. So I think those three texts in particular have been very beneficial for me. Just comparing and contrasting the different philosophies. And so if I were to speak from that series, the Bucky Fuller series obviously is another series that I found to be one of the most beneficial, and mainly because it forces you to think about systems in a different way, and how to even think about nature and systems, which is a little bit different than traditional systems thinking, that the way it's taught. So I think that that's really one of my favorite series, or most impactful series that I've come across. The earlier series, I mean, I really think that we did a very deep dive into Jordan Peterson, so into that psychology. That was very helpful to start to, at least, I mean, we started with Jung, and John Beebe and everybody were amazing, but going through the Jordan Peterson series made it a little bit more accessible. So made Jung a little bit more accessible. And I'd be remiss, obviously, if I didn't say all the Stoic authors that we had initially. That would be, we had Massimo, I believe, on 2 different occasions. We had Donald Robertson on 2 different occasions. We had Kai Whiting right before his book came out. We had Greg on a number of occasions. As well as other people, Stoic Dan and Bill Broadwater actually presented, Dr. Matt Wujek. So, I mean, I think we've had, quite a few give their perspectives. And it's interesting to think about that in terms of comparing CBT and the more analytical schools of psychology. So it's, I think those were the series that probably had the biggest impact. I know that's a lot, but I mean, we've done 1,000. So, I mean, when you've done 1,000 meetups, you're going to have, I mean, I only gave what, 6, 7, or 8 series. I think that that's pretty good in at least narrowing the focus. And they all do bring their unique value. I mean, I really thought that, be quite honest, I really had a great time on Ebony and Christiane's, because I knew very little about Harry Potter. So that was a lot of fun. And so, there are those meetups too. The design way was interesting as well. I think it set us up for the Bucky Fuller meetups. We and having the author here, I think anytime we've been able to have the author appear, it was really valuable. Mark Stallman's 30 Spheres also, I thought, were very, very good. Those specifically. I thought that they gave deep insights into distinctions between the West and the East, and potentially where it's headed. And so, yeah, I mean, I think all those series were very much worthwhile. Peter Berkman also did some great work as well. So on Marshall McLuhan. But yeah, so those are the ones that I would probably go with off the top of my head.
Thank you. All right, we've got one more gentleman who's come in, and Mike, what meetups have you liked? Mike, are you there? And is your mic working? Okay. Mike, your mic is not working. Okay, whenever you're ready. Okay. So let's
It's working, but I don't have much to say at this point.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. If whenever you do, you're welcome. So next, we're going to continue with, we finished up to Oscar. Now it is Eleanor, Brian, and Joe about what you would like to see in the future. Eleanor, what kind of meetups would you like to see?
I actually haven't made a thought about what would I like to see. Maybe more. Phil had amazing meetups, maybe more about Russian philosophy. I'm not sure if this is even okay right now, but I like his meetups too, and his books. He has absolutely different perspective. Something about video. Maybe we could involve some videos and comment on videos. There are
No,
some.
I'm sorry, I did not hear what meetups?
Meetups where you have to watch videos and comment on videos. There are some iconic filmmakers. I would be interested in this one, yes.
Wonderful. Thank
and,
you.
Mythology, of course. Greek
And what?
Greek mythology.
Mythology, yes. Excellent. Thank you. Next up is going to be Brian. Brian, what would you like to see? Brian, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was having trouble with getting my mouse to move. Right, I did send a list in by email today. I don't know if you received it.
I have not seen it yet, but please,
Okay,
can you share it with everybody, because I want it to be on the table here.
Well, I can list you the main items of it, certainly, looking at future topics. And the things that I'd like to see is more certain books that were reviewed in the past. It's been interesting in following through that. And I provided a list of about 5, just for consideration. I mean, it's too many to list all that I might want to.
Sure.
The 5 I've sent in are ones I'm either preparing to read now or reading now. So the other thing I want to, the other thing I put on the list was African philosophy. I know very little about it. I know it's very difficult to get the knowledge there. A few years ago, I joined with a lady from Nigeria, and we started to put together the outline of a book, but never got finished, and then I didn't see her again. So I was also interested in looking at detailed descriptions of certain areas. For example, take an orchestra, looking at the roles in the orchestra and how the people perform them and talking to them. Formula One, the same thing, looking at what happens there. And also other things that came to mind was having some sessions on writing and publishing my own book, providing water for the world. How do we go about it? What ideas can we come up with? And also looking at shamanism. There's a few of the things.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Joe, what meetups would you like to see?
Really quickly, and one I left off before was Dante. That was actually one of my favorite, and I really liked that series quite a bit. I think it would be interesting to bring back Marshall McLuhan. I think especially now, understanding the media and how we interact with technology is actually in this tetrad model. To gain a deep understanding of that, I think is especially important. And I think exploring language is, the origins of it, and as well as, the limits of language as well. So I think that is going to become increasingly important when we're talking about things like intelligence, artificial intelligence. And I actually wouldn't mind covering some things along the lines of what is intelligence, in general. How do you measure it? What are the, what is it from a holistic perspective? What does it really mean? So I think that could be interesting. But I'm not as sold on that last one. I just am throwing it out there as a brainstorming idea. But I do think sticking with some of the series that we currently have going on is very important as well. Whether it be the Bucky Fuller or the Stoic series.
Yeah, no, don't worry about that, because I mean the thing is that this is yes and I think the ones that we have going, we have chosen after a lot of thought and a lot of experimentation, and those are doing very, very well. And this is just to say, okay, so I'm not, as you've seen, I don't kind of radically change things, but I keep adding things and then subtracting things. So this is like a brainstorm to add, add kinds of things, and just expand the range a little bit. All right, go ahead.
One other thing, I think Mortimer Adler's great idea is if we could return to that too. I think that would be very worthwhile. That would require a lot of work, but still.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, let's go to Mike. Do you have anything that you would like to see? If you do, just go ahead and type an exclamation mark, or you can unmute and talk now. Otherwise, let's go forward here. Sarah, you had a point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to include, if we can, and I didn't really get to explore this too much, but if we can incorporate a class or two on the philosophy of science, I would really be super grateful. I loved digging into the philosophy of science, and some things I remember being really filled with different types of perspectives that I love to explore: epistemology of ethics, logic, metaphysics, positivism, various different, the foundations of the philosophy of science, and through logic, how we build scientific knowledge. If we can get a class or two on that, I would absolutely love that. Even, the laws of nature, and stuff like that, if you want to get, even to that extent as well. So I would definitely love to engage in that type of class.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So now we've done one round about the past and one round about the future. So now I'm thinking about the future, and let's see what's the best way of proceeding. I mean, I want to add something that Nalini put forth, because I did like a trial version of it yesterday, and Nalini had recommendation of visual arts. We have not really focused much on visual arts. So visual arts, painting, also music, that area. We have done actually a lot of literature, but we have not really focused on visual art. We've done a little bit of music, but not much. So that would be one area. So I want to put that on the table. Now let's see how to proceed from this. So first, I'm just talking out loud here how I'm thinking about this. So firstly, we have to recognize that what we are doing, as if you hear the subtext of what everybody's saying, everybody likes what we are doing, a lot of what we are doing. And firstly, let's acknowledge that. Firstly, I think the poetry meetups are doing amazingly well. What Maritza is doing there, what that entire group of people who keep coming, It's a real community. If you've not experienced it, I recommend that very, very highly. Because what it does is that I'm going to talk a little bit. Let's do one thing. Let's just talk a little bit about the series that we are running. First thought I had, and I want anybody's comments on it, is that I'm a big fan of series. Okay, and I think many people, Evanik mentioned that, Maritza mentioned that, Joe mentioned that, Judy mentioned that. Because what happens is that if you really want to build something and really transform yourself, you need to do that on a weekly basis. Just one-off things are worth trying things. There's going to be an experiment, and there is a valid, focus that you need to have on systematically experimenting on something. But then there has to be something that you're really building on. So I'm a big fan of series. Okay, so ideally, even when I try something, I'm always, my outlook is that can this be converted into series? And if there is no possibility of converting into series, I'm not that interested. And I know that I need to do some experiments to decide whether it will really live well as series in this milieu. So there is a lot of experiment, but series is what I think is really valuable to us. So let's look at the series and what they are doing. So I think I will just talk very quickly about all the series here that we are going and what they do for us. Okay, so what we have looked at the past, right? We have looked at the future. Now we're looking at the present and what it is doing for us. Okay, and then we will try to put together patterns from each of them. So let me go on. You know what? Why should I go on? Maybe I will ask you guys. What do you think of the series that we are doing? Focus only on the series that you are attending a lot of, and say, what are you getting from it? What are you getting from the series? Because this is this is not something that we did 6 months ago. This is something that you are doing. This is not in the future. This is not something that you would like to see. This is what you're actually participating in. Okay, so the question about the present. But here I'm not going to put everybody on the spot. Just go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you would like to share about your experience in the current series. So Mondays, poetry, Tuesdays, Art of War / Confucius / Gibran right now. Wednesday, the comprehensivist. Thursday, Stoicism. Friday, we've got a rotating thing going on. On Saturday, Asian philosophy. On Sunday, we've got the great plays and literature, and we've got Bucky. So any comments about what you're getting from them? And we will go from there. We'll start with Evanik, Joe, and Maritza. Evanik.
Okay, so I can comment on Stoicism and Khalil Gibran. First of all, I'm so happy that we're doing that, Khalil, on Tuesday nights for the next 4 weeks. So that's awesome because I get so much. I love this, even though it's poetry, I know it's a poem, but I also think there's such a rich story to it that it teaches us, how to operate in the world. I think all the series really does that too, in various degrees. But I think with the current one, Khalil Gibran, it teaches you how to operate, and it also teaches you to look for the beauty in life, and all of life, not just in the flowers and the trees, which it's great, but also look for the beauty and unfortunate things, and to see what you get out of that, and to recognize that that is a part of life, and that it's cyclical. So I love that series. So I'm so glad that we're doing that. Also, Stoicism on Thursdays. I think this is my first deep dive into the letters, and one of the things I actually wanted to bring up is I think, maybe looking, somebody had said it, look at one of the other meetups when you talked about this, looking at the history of the philosophers, like the history of Seneca, the history of, other Stoic philosophers, and looking at their lives as well as looking at their teachings. And I thought that was a fabulous idea. But I think getting like doing the letters in the series and seeing what people are interested in and hearing people's comments on it for me has been great, and it's helped me to understand stoicism in a different way with studying the letters. And it's easy, and it's not easy, wrong, but it's approachable. And just kind of working with different people and figuring out what Seneca is really saying, and and just working it out last night. Like last night, Gary had so much to say on because he's studying Stoicism and the physics of Stoicism, he said. And so he had a lot to say and a lot to contribute last night to the discussion. So those are the two that I can comment on, and that's what I like about both.
Wonderful. Thank you. Joe, which series do you like? So it's going to be Joe followed by Marissa. If anybody else wants to talk about series that we are running now, on weekly series that you really like, and talk about why you like it, what you like about it, please go ahead. We are now looking at the present. Go ahead, Joe.
So am I allowed to mention Art of War? Because I think we just finished that.
Yeah,
already.
that's fine. You can
Yeah, I mean,
anything
that's
within the last 3 months.
I thought that was actually one of my favorite series that we went through. Particularly, we were able to see how not only the tactics that were applied back during Sun Tzu's time, and learn a little bit about the history of warfare during that period, but also a set of principles that Sun Tzu actually managed himself by, and then the different tactics and how they are still relevant in certain scenarios today. And I thought that was actually very interesting. And it was really more of a story about human behavior and what happens even when decisions were made to go to war. Like this is where, how brutal it was. So, I mean, and the cautions of going to war. So I really found that to be interesting. And then we were able to really draw some interesting parallels to everyday life from that. So I thought that was something that was interesting. The Bucky series, I think that there are quite a few, people that have stood out. I mean, Kurt has been, here every month, once a month. And he's really covered user-centered design. And I think that he's done it in a unique way. So that has been really beneficial because, he's integrated some things from Stanford's D School, and he's also incorporated stuff from Bucky. So he talks about how to look at things as a whole from universe versus actually looking at things from just a Stanford D School perspective. So we're kind of getting the best of both worlds. We've gotten insights as to John and Yoshimi and how they've made inroads into what they've been able to do with corporate culture, as well as what Richard Ramsey's been able to do with people that are veteran side. That has been some of the most remarkable work that I think I've seen here thus far. And some of the things I think that are really exciting are two people in particular, Casey House and Stroopy. I think what Stroopy's able to do is remarkable as far as creating shapes and having visions, and just talking about using his language, talking about Bucky's ideas, is very helpful. So I think that's been beneficial. So I think those two in particular have shown great promise. Kirby has also provided us with multiple presentations that were excellent on just geometry of thought. So I think that the Bucky series has been really very helpful. as far as the letters, you know, Seneca gives us a different perspective. He's very different than Marcus Aurelius, and he's very different than Epictetus. He's much more poetic, but still profound, obviously. And I think that there's the letters are, I think they're really accessible, and I really appreciate us going through them the way we are. So I think that when you talk about even things like the shortness of life, you could kind of see a lot of his other works coming out in the letters, and they're like little snippets of what his actual what his other, you know, writings are about. Essentially, you can see parts of On Anger in some of the letters, and I think that what it is that it's just a really accessible way of getting to some of the heart of what actually Seneca had talked about. And I think that I mean, there's a lot of potential with going into mysticism with branching off from the divine feminine. So I think the divine feminine series was also excellent. It brought us a different perspective. We often hear, you know, whether it be Arjuna and Krishna or Christ, and seeing the role of the feminine has been, you know, helpful to see the role that it's played in society over the years, and in different cultures and in different contexts. So like one of the most valuable ones was Oshun. I thought was one of the earlier ones that we covered. So, trying to think off the top of my head, if I'd be remiss without saying Design Your Life, but I'm going to hold off commenting on that. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So folks, what we're doing now is we've first talked about the future, first talked about the past, all the meetups that you've liked in the past. Then we talked about the meetups that you would like to see. And now we're talking about what we like about the current series. And then we're going to put together the patterns of all of them. So I'm going to call on people for the present thing. And then if you want to add anything about the past or the future, you'll be able to do that. So next up is going to be Maritza, followed by DLJ. If anybody else wants to share about anything that they like about the series that we are currently running, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Maritza.
For me, I'm getting so much out of the Buckminster Fuller series. I know that there's quite a bit of variety in who's presenting and what it is we're doing, but for all of them, they're just so well presented. And for every one of them, they spawn within me like something to go research and something to go study and delve deeper into it. And because it is, even though it's a series, it's very varied. It's refreshing because it's something new, but not new because it's within the same umbrella, even though it's a different topic or a different something. And I find that the way in which because they are so differently presented, it allows for different thinking, but enough similarities that you can see patterns, and it just helps you to kind of get some of the ideas. I'm really, it's because of that series that I'm kind of become a little more focused on the idea of how do we bring these great philosophical concepts into the real? How do we bring them into the day-to-day? And it's through that series that I've been kind of formulating that thought, and it's what I'm going forward. I'm also developing a almost unhealthy obsession with making the different shapes. My my collection of things I play with is growing and growing. So I really just the whole Buckminster Fuller series, and we have it in several, and also I just it's so refreshing that so many different ways that we're tackling it. I just love that. And for also, you know, sure, there's a little bias here, but you know, the Poetry Mondays that's the highlight of my week. I love when people show up. I like the regulars. I love when we have new people. It's so invigorating. You know, we actually start with nothing and we end with something every Monday. So if the rest of my week is shit, it doesn't matter, because our Monday, I created something. So I can die happy, you know? That's just that's the way it feels. Like I created something Monday. And that's really the way I feel. But I say that, but the Buckminster Fuller series is starting to make me feel that way. I think some of the past ones felt a little that way as well. And so it's just like those are the two biggest ones that speak to me. But honestly, the format of Gibran, we do it across a couple different of our ones that we're doing currently now. I love the simplicity. It's so nice to hear other people's take. I mean, it's a work of poetry, but it's a work of art. It's a work of spirituality, a work of history, right? And to hear everyone's take on it, and like in Gibran specifically, because so many people start by saying, well, the part that spoke to me is, and it's just, there's something magical about hearing it twice, which something that you've started doing across a few of our different series. And there is something magical about hearing it twice. And then just kind of, we're not even really dissecting it. Like we're dissecting the felt portions of what we heard. And I mean, how do you quantify that feeling, right? That's kind of awesome. And you get to hear other people, and like, even if that's not the piece that spoke to you, it gives you a bigger appreciation for what spoke to you and why. I'm learning better to voice the felt aspects of things I read, which apparently it's a skill. I didn't know it was a skill I needed, but with you, Srikant, and our 5211 Ideas group, it's a skill that I am developing. And that holds true for any of the meetups I attend here with you. That's kind of one of the biggest things I'm learning. That and this growing insatiable desire to see how they work together. So those are kind of the things that I'm getting out of it. Thank you, Srikant.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maritza. Great comments. And folks, what we're going to do is we're going to go cycle around, and then the next, I'm thinking of identifying certain general themes that have come up that I saw, and I'm going to hit those and have discussion on that. Then we'll go from there. But currently we're talking about what meetup series that we are running right now that you really like and what you're getting from it. So it's going to be DLJ followed by Bill. DLJ.
Yeah, so I like how the poetry one. Yeah, the poetry one, for those who don't attend, has essentially two parts. The first one is poetry readings. That's less valuable for me because I have my own psychological defects. Means I need to see things written down for them to register in my brain. So the verbal bit, because I don't have visual imagery, so I need to see things written down. So that's less valuable to me. But really enjoyable is the second part, which is the collaborative creation of the poem. So it's that collaborative nature that I thoroughly enjoy, and the fact that Marissa's just said it, there's an end result. You're actually producing something. So you sort of end that session going, hey, we just made something. So that's actually very, very pleasing. The other one I want to mention is Sanjay. This is for selfish reasons. There's a project that I'm working on relating to the mind. And the neuroscience side of things is tangential, but underpins what I'm working on. So obviously it's very important to me to know where I'm going wrong, basically, right? So if Sanjay says, no, this is the way it actually works, and I go, whoops. So far, so good. But I'm in horror that one day he's going to say, no, this is the way it works. I think, I'm completely wrong. So that's a bit scary. But I'm still going to keep doing it because I want to know when I'm wrong. So that's a very selfish reason, obviously, for that one. That was it. Those are my two favorites at the moment.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, DLG. Bill.
Thanks. One series I have liked was the Art of War series. I only went to the first 4 or 5, but I did like that a lot. Another series was the Taoism series on Saturday afternoons. I've only attended once, but I plan to attend regularly because I'm really liking the texts that are being studied there. I've never really read any Taoist texts, but some of the principles of meditation practice that they are talking about, I have experience in a multi-decade meditation, mindful awareness meditation practice. So those texts are speaking a language I understand. And then the third I want to mention, I have not been going to the Wednesday or Sunday Bucky series every week, but I kind of I've dropped in maybe 4 or 5 times for the talks that were either on social tensegrity or on geometric shapes and structures. And the social tensegrity has been very thought-provoking, and I'll circle back to that in the next section of tonight's group. But the geometric shape has also been thought-provoking in a different way around meditation practice and guided imagery meditation and the usage of geometric shapes as guided imagery tools for meditation practice. Some people call it sacred geometry. I'm not sure I would use that word, but it's like I'm not the first person in human history to use geometric shapes and structures as prompts for guided imagery meditation. So hearing like guys like, I went to the Stroopy talk, for example, hearing guys like that and others talk about these shapes and the notion that these shapes are capturing something elemental about the structure of the universe, the structure of life, the structure of experience, the structure of the body, the structure of the neurological system, whatever. That Bucky was onto something when he said that there's something about nature that selects for these shapes. Either they've got tensile strength or they economize. Amy, what's that Bucky architect disciple who became a professor at Harvard Business School? Amy Gunderson or Anderson or something? You know, I looked at her book that she wrote in the 1970s or 1980s, like applying her very technical math, engineering, architecture skill set to this Bucky principle that nature selects for certain shapes. I'm kind of at the beginning of my journey on that, of learning what Bucky was onto there, about what are these selection mechanisms that select for these shapes, that they've got efficiency properties or weight-bearing properties or economizing properties. So yeah, Amy Edmondson, there you go. I'm just grateful to all of you for having these Bucky sessions, because he was onto something. I'm not sure he finished the book of knowledge on what he was onto, but he started it, and there seem to be a lot of people who are tapping into it. So I'm grateful to be a part of it, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Bill. I just want to let everybody know, if you're interested in geometry and Bucky, we really have an amazing presentation this Sunday by Don Brittle on geometry. He has his own way of thinking about geometry and applying it to physics and other things. He's founded an institute called the Field Structure Institute, and he comes very highly recommended by several people. So I'm really looking forward to that. All right, so now we've done one round. Now I'm going to now just look at what everybody has said about the future, about the past, future, and present. And I'm going to talk about some themes that I saw as having legs Okay, and then I'm going to ask, Maritza, Joe, and Evanique to see if there are any patterns that kind of showed up, and then anybody else. Now we're looking at kind of large scale patterns. So one part of it is something that lots of people talked about. So you can look at any kind of pattern. Okay, so I'm going to just talk about a few patterns here. One pattern was that of syntopical. Okay, of kind of connecting three. I really like the way in which Maritza put it, because that has a lot of legs. So you choose three things. We've studied so many things, and there is so much commonality and difference in things that we study. So just picking three things and exploring the commonalities, differences from it, I think would be a very powerful thing right in the core of the mission of what we are doing. We have implicitly done this all the time. We end up doing it all the time, after studying Tao Te Ching, Gita, and Gospel of John for some time, we started seeing, what is it that is common and what is it that is unique to each of them. And that can be done for many, 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 many things that we're doing. So I think that has legs. The advantage of that is that it will bring back to our memories things of the past that we've studied, and it will produce new combinations from them. So I think that idea has legs. So I'm just highlighting a few things here and there, okay? And I want everybody to be doing that, of saying what kind of stance. Now, don't try to push your own take that I want to see this. This is like, hear everything that everybody has said. Take the background of what we are doing here and what the potential of what we are doing is, and try to come up with something that will actualize that potential. And I think this one certainly qualifies. Now, second, I want to take something which is very different from it. And this is like dog that did not bark. Okay, what is it that we are doing, which we're not doing, but which can easily integrate into what we are doing? And that one was the one that Nalini brought up. That's visual arts. Visual arts and music. We've done literature, but we've not done enough of visual arts. And that would be such a different thing from many things that we're doing. It will bring in a whole bunch of really, really fascinating things. So that's the second thing that stands out to me. The third one is that I was really surprised by how much people are getting from Stoicism. So I just want to, acknowledge that that Stoicism seems to, because for a long time, we've been focused on religion, not enough on philosophy. So so we brought in Stoicism, and what people are realizing is that it actually integrates kind of philosophy and the religious way of thinking in a very odd way. So it's kind of it is dealing with the issues that religion is dealing with, but in philosophical terms. So in that sense, it's really unique. And Seneca is, I think, really, really powerful. It also speaks to the idea that all of us want to not just talk about ideas, but, grok them, make them part of us, part of our life. That's why we're doing this. And Seneca is all about that. So I think Stoicism kind of stands out. So those are the three things I want to highlight in the beginning. Now I'm now first going to invite Maritza, Joe, and Ebony if they want to highlight anything, and then others if they want to highlight anything. So Maritza, Joe, or Ebony, if you would like to highlight something, just go ahead and type an exclamation mark. We'll start with Ebony.
In addition to what you said, I also noticed there was a pattern of people wanting to talk that got a lot out of Jordan Peterson. I think Maritza, I think it was Maritza that had mentioned to combine different things, like the three different things. And for some reason, Jordan Peterson, Stoicism, and Carl Jung came to mind. And for me, I think because A, I heard them in this meetup. B, I know there was a series on Carl Jung earlier, but for us latecomers to 52 Living Ideas, we never saw that one. So I think it would be interesting. I think we kind of did it before, but I think if you combine the three, because I know how we started off with the Bible was with actually Jordan Peterson doing that series, which was also awesome. And so I think that relates. And I think something that I, and Gary had discussed last night is that Stoicism and Seneca sounds a lot like Paul and John. And I think, so I think those three, Jung, Peterson, and Stoicism, kind of relate. I see a pattern there. Jordan Peterson is more psychological. I think CBH and that line of thinking, that psychological line of thinking, maybe like a psychological series. What I see is like a psychological series, right? Of studying different psychologists and, maybe looking at Jung, looking at Jordan Peterson, looking at, even Stoicism and psychology, because a lot of CBH comes from Stoicism. So I think that's a pattern that I see here tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Evanik. I'm going to put that as a separate pattern, but there is a pattern that I was kind of thinking it was at the edge of my mind, but you kind of made it very explicit. If you look at what is common between, like, notice also many people really like the divine feminine. Okay, so that was one. Second is Jordan Peterson, and third is Carl Jung. What is common to all of these? It is really mythology. They're all, and it also integrates with Maritza's point about different kind of cultures and getting them in. What better things than to just take myths of the whole world and taking them all in. And it so happens that we actually have a plan to do that, because Brian and Evanik and Penny are planning to do The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. And that is just fantastic. And I think that, so I'm adding that as a fourth element for sure of mythology. I think that's something that has legs that we can keep coming back. It also provides tremendous amount of flexibility, as you guys did with the divine feminine. You took mythologies from different cultures. And then you see the similarities and differences in cultures. So I think the mythology part has legs. And I'm also putting the psychology. Psychology is a topic that has been, again, of perennial interest. So I'm adding that as a topic. We've done flow, for example. We've done kind of applied psychology in things like, we've done Outwitting the Devil. We've done Ray Dalio's principles in psychology there. So there is a whole bunch of psychology that is there. Okay, so thank you very much, Evanik. So now I'm going to ask Maritza and then Joe, and then to anybody else. So just large scale patterns that you see in what people have already put on the table in terms of the past, future, and the present. Maritza.
I was gonna say, I see interest in there's the philosophy, the psychology, and then how it would be applied in reality. Seeing those like overarching big things are what come to mind for me. But also, a lot of people talked about learning and about the neuroscience aspect, and maybe that's a little more specific, but I think there's interest in the house of, how do we learn in addition to what to be learning?
Yeah, I like both. I'm adding two factors here. One is the application oriented. I think that has always been a core part of 52 Living Ideas. For a longest time, we had Fridays where we did self-improvement Fridays. Now, Jang Joe and Evanique are doing Design Your Life. So that angle is very big for us, and it's always a very popular topic. So anything kind of on application of saying, how do you improve your life? The idea that Oscar had about saying, what are the, pearls of wisdom that you have learned and what kind of struggle that you went through in order to get that. So that kind of application oriented part, I think we can, let's put that as another angle. And clearly learning is something that is there as well. So this is coming along very well. So I've got psychology, I've got application, and I've got learning. All right. Next up is going to be Joe. And then I'm going to open it up for anybody else who wants to talk about, again, you're looking for patterns in what everybody else has now said. Joe.
I mean, there's definitely a pattern between the systems thinkers that we've covered. And, we can go all the way back. I mean, we have Tom Gilb that we had Russell Adcock, and now we have the Bucky series. And all three of them have a very distinct way of approaching systems thinking. And I think, if we were to say, Russell Adcock is focused on problem solving, holistic problem solving, but mostly looking at specific parts of a system. Bucky's looking at the whole entire universe. And Tom is actually looking at from a more very quantified approach to systems thinking. And there are three different approaches. And I think that there's a lot in common though between the three as well. And I think, but they do have their unique way of approaching problem solving. And I thought that there's a lot of commonality there, and we can continue to explore those differences. I think that actually having a meetup, looking at the differences between those three thinkers, and whomever else we may have covered, would be a very interesting endeavor. I really do. How Tom sees the world, how Bucky sees the world, and how Russell Adcock saw things. I think that's, and I do like the neuroscience recommendation, integrating with either Ian McGilchrist or Daniel Kahneman with some of the work that Evanique talked about with Carl Jung, Jordan Peterson, and the Power of Myth.
Excellent point. So I'm going to put two things down. One is systems thinking as a area, because we can, we've done some work, but I think that has legs, and it connects with everything that we are doing. It's all about integrated way of thinking. Bucky's thinks like that. It's just, it integrates with many things. Design way is a way of kind of doing systems thinking. And in psychology, I think, Kahneman and McGilchrist are good topics, good topics which integrate with a lot of things that we do. So, so that kind of adds, and I'm going to put that as a sub-bullet under the psychology part. All right, folks, now I want to open it up for everybody. Again, remember what we're trying to do is we're not talking about your suggestions. We're talking about the patterns that you see in what everybody has said about what they like about the past, what they want to do in the future, and what they like about the present. Next up is Cheryl.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in, I agree with everyone that came before me about what they found to be the most sort of good themes to kind of zero in on. But I do want to just point out that I believe that a similar foundation, I think, is the philosophy of science. So even if you're going to incorporate, if we're going to have a session on psychology, I think there's a philosophy of science that underlies that. And I think that theme can really be spread out because there's so many different sections and topics in the philosophy of science and how it works. Neuroscience is interesting. And I would love to do that. But I definitely think like a practical, like, how we can apply it. And that's where science, I think, comes in too. And, what methods have worked in the past and incorporating that into some of the major themes that we've discussed, I think would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else? Okay, so if anybody else wants to see if there are any patterns that people noticed, we can go for that. So far the ones that clearly seem to have legs and there is a lot of kind of consensus around one is the syntopical. So I'm going to go from the bottom here. Systems thinking, learning, anything about learning, like how to read a book, all kinds of learning things. Application or self-improvement, let's call it application of self-improvement. And then psychology, mythology, stoicism, syntopical, three, I'll come up with a nice name for it, working with three things. And the last one was visual arts. Those are the things that stand out. Anybody else wants to talk about patterns that they see in what everybody has said? Please go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Bill.
Thanks. There's a commonality that I'm seeing in across a lot of these areas that I would label under the phrase, quote, selection mechanism. So let me explain through examples. So Amy Gunderson and Bucky talked about the selection mechanisms of the laws of physics and the selection mechanisms of space itself. In Amy's book, she says that space itself selects for certain shapes. So so far we've got the laws of physics as a selection mechanism, as Bucky explained, and we've got space as a selection mechanism, as Amy explained. And then further examples would be there's evolutionary selection mechanisms through biological evolution that affect human neurology and neuroscience, human social organization, human problem solving, okay? And then there's intentional selection mechanisms, which operate on deliberate analytical problem solving. So when folks tonight mentioned problem solving specifically, there's all sorts of like criteria that I would put under the headings of logic and
let's
evidence.
shorten it. Bill, let's shorten it a little bit. I know you came in a little bit late, but we have talked a lot about many things, and I want to pull them all together.
Okay, so to wrap up what I'm saying, it seems to me that these different selection mechanisms work in different ways. And a lot of the problems, the last one on the list would be philosophy. What selects for a good philosophy book, that's got its own criteria of what later philosophers and human beings regard as good philosophy, whether they regard Seneca as good. So a lot of problems that wind up coming, I'll close with this, a lot of problems that wind up coming up in these meetup groups, like problems in society and stuff, are shaped by multiple selection mechanisms of the ones that I named. And so to have a compare and contrast between how these different selection mechanisms work can help illuminate the structure of a problem that is shaped by multiple of these selection mechanisms. And understanding the problem better in terms of what selects for its structure can help understand solutions better and point ways to solutions.
Thank you, Bill. What I want to do is now we've identified 8 things, okay, that seem to have legs. I want people's comments on those 8 things. Can somebody, Joe, would you be able to type these in? So you say just 1 is visual arts. The second, number 2 is comparing 3. Number 3 is stoicism. Number 4 is mythology. Number 5 is psychology. Number 6 is application / self-improvement. Number 7 is learning. And number 8 is systems thinking. And, based on all my experience with like all the meetups, the 1,500 meetups, I think all of these have legs. Okay, all of these have legs as best as I can tell. So now, once Joe puts it in the chat, I want to.
I just missed number 7, actually. What was that?
Number 7 was learning.
Okay, no, before that then.
Application / self-improvement.
Okay.
Okay, so now what I want to do, see, we are systematically kind of doing, this is like doing induction, slowly, we're trying to kind of put together pattern, and now it is becoming more and more concentrated because all of it has to end up in saying, okay, this is what we do. Okay, so I'm just doing this kind of openly direct, with everybody here. So these are the eight areas, and I would like people's comments on these. Just look at the 8 things, and then say, it's coming up. And look at the 8 things, and then just say, what do you think? Do you see all of them as having, let me see, 7 and 8.
There's 8. I forgot 8 there.
Okay, so you just put 8 as, just put 8 in the system, before systems. And 7, application and improvement. Oh, was it 9? Did I miss something? Let me see. Comparing 3, stoicism, methodology. There is no methodology. Let me see, stoicism, mythology. That's mythology.
Mythology.
And then we got psychology, then application, that's correct. And then we got learning as a separate point. And then systems thinking as the last point. Okay, and after we are done with, talking about this, then we will look for things that we have missed. All right, so, I'm going to start with people who have, I'm going to start with Maritza, Joe, and Evanik first, and then I'm going to ask for people's comments about these. Which of these, you can choose as many as you want, okay? You can vote for all 8 if you want. Or you can vote for only one, or you can vote for any number. And let's just do it in text first, and then we can and also talk about it. Okay, so we'll do both. So give us just a second. So once we have all the numbers, we will go ahead and do that. So, and Maritza, I'm going to ask you first, so you can think about which ones you like and why. And for everybody else, as soon as we have the final numbers, you can put just a series of numbers in the chat, just in a single line, 1, 2, 4, like that. And you can choose as many as you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, there it is. Those are the 8. Okay, those are the 8. So you can choose, you can put it in the chat, and then you get a chance to talk about it. So let's start with Maritza.
So shockingly, seeing the 8 of them listed as you called them out, system thinking actually comes first for me. I'd like to see.
Just a second. I'm going to keep notes here.
So number 8.
Okay, so I'm just going to take votes for each of them. Okay, I'm going to not go second, because the way I'm going to do it is that I'm going to collect everybody's votes and then see patterns in them. and then we will talk about first, second. Okay, so, but you can tell me in the order. I'll mark it for you here.
So, well, not in any order, but just 8 and 2 for me would be the topmost of these 8.
Okay, just a second. So I'm going to put that in category A for you. Okay, so you can put that's category A. Do you want to add anything in category B?
2.
No, wait a minute. So 8
Wait.
and which one was?
Wait, I'm confused then. What? I'm sorry. I'm doing it
Okay.
wrong?
No, no, I'm not explaining it correctly. So firstly, you can vote for as many things as you want, but there I'm giving you another tool to tell me and everybody which ones really speak to you. So you can say in category A, I would like this, category B, I would like this, and category C, I would like this. You can divide it into 3 if you want. So which ones are category A for you? Ones that you would really, really love to see. So
that would be number 2 and number 8.
okay.
In category B would be number 2. Well, should I repeat them or no? No repeating?
No, no repeat. No repeat.
Repeating. Okay. So then after that, then it would be 3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, and 5. Okay. All right. Let's okay. That's good. If you can make it into just ABC, that's better, even better.
Okay.
But if you want to use ABC, you can use ABC. Okay, so now let's see, Joe or Evany, who would like to go next? Joe, Evany, go ahead.
So I think in category A, I would say number 4, category B, number 5, and category C, number 3.
3. You don't want to put more than one, those are the only 3 ones you want to focus on? You're welcome to use multiple.
Okay, so then in category A, I would also put number 6. Category B, number 7, and category C, number 8.
Okay, very good. All right, Joe.
Category A, 5 and 8.
Just a second, 5 and 8, okay.
Category B, 1, 2, 3, and 6.
1, 2, 3, and 6. Okay, very good. So now, folks, would love if anybody else to vote. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you would like to vote.
Can you explain the 3 categories again, A, B, and C?
Yeah, so we've got 8 items. In category A is something that you would really love to see and you would like to participate in all the time. So that's like category A. B is very, very interesting, and C is also interesting. So if you can make just A, B, that is even better. So just use A and B. So what is it like? Things that you really, really love and you would like to attend all the time, and things that you love and would like to attend most of the times. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. So let's see. Let's go with Eleanor. Eleanor is, can you speak it out, Eleanor?
Yes. Category A would be for me 5, 1, 3, and 4. Category B would be 6, 7, 8, and 2.
Okay, wonderful. Eleanor, excellent. Next up is Judy. Judy, go ahead.
Category A is 1 and 6.
B. Just a second, hold on.
Okay.
1 and 6. Okay.
B is 7 and 8.
Okay.
And C is 4 and 5.
Okay, just a second. I have a problem. Right. Hold on. Okay, I got category A. Can you repeat category B for me, please?
Yes, 7 and 8.
Okay.
And C, do you want C?
Yes, please.
C is 4 and 5.
Okay, excellent. Next up is Bill. Bill, go ahead.
Oh, me?
Oh, you
yeah,
put
I'll
it in
just
the
give-
chat. Okay, it's
I put it in the chat.
okay. So Bill says 2, 7, and 8.
But in order, 8 is first,
If
and
8,
then 2, and then 7. I have a preference over 8, 2, and 7. My first preference is 8. My second preference is 2, and my third preference is 7.
okay, so I'm going to put it as ABC then. Okay, so we've got these. Does anybody else? Let's see. Oscar is A is 6. Just a second here. Oscar, A is 6 and B is 8. Okay. Okay. So give me just a second here. I'm trying to pull this together here. This is mythology. This is psychology. This is self-improvement. This is learning. And this is systems thinking. Okay, anybody else wants to vote? Go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Okay, so I'm going to do something very simple. Let's see, DLJ, what is this? All 1 to 8 session. Okay, go ahead.
It's all about the
Oh,
the
this one. Okay,
session.
so you're voting for, you're basically all
So
eight.
I would echo Bill, I think, because he seems to have gone for the 3 that are most likely to engender some challenging and critiquing ideas, right?
Which ones would you want to take as A, and which ones would you want to take as B?
So I think systems thinking,
Systems thinking, okay.
yeah, and comparing the 3, but it depends what 3 subjects we're looking at, right?
Okay, so you want it as A or B or nothing?
No, I'll put those 2 as both A, but like I said, there's an if for number 2.
Okay, because it is if, I'll put it as C.
Well, put it as B.
Okay, I'll put it as B. Okay.
We'll negotiate.
Just to clarify, DLJ, this comparing 3 referred to the 3 thinkers that Joseph put on the table. It's comparing those 3 thinkers.
No, it was
idea. It's
no, that was the young.
okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. All right. So somehow I managed to map whatever marking mechanism that DLJ had into our system of marking, so I can actually add it up. Otherwise, there's no way of adding it up. Okay, so let me now try to add it up and see the patterns. Let's see. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Brian has and Kevin has. Okay, Marisa, can you do me a favor and just read out Brian's and
Absolutely.
Kevin's, and I'll write it
So
down.
Brian for A has 1, 4, and 8.
Just a second. 1, 4, and 8. Okay.
For B, he has 3, 5, 6, and 7.
3, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, Kevin.
Kevin for A has 2 and 8.
2 and 8. Okay.
And for B, he has 5 and 6.
5 and 6. All right. So this is very interesting. I really like this entire matrix here. Okay. So one thing is clear. There is only one which got votes from everybody. Okay. So first we are just counting the number of votes. Okay. It doesn't matter A, B, C. How many votes? It's number 8. Okay. Everybody voted. It got 1, 2. So total number of votes was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 votes. Okay. Number 8. 1, 4, 5, 6 A's, 3 B's, and 1 C. Okay. By far the most popular one. Okay. So we have to do something on systems thinking. Okay. So I'm putting it as number 1. All right. Let's see what else is there here. I'm just going to count the number of votes here. So this is 10. How many votes did they get? Right. So 1 got 4 votes. With, I'm also going to put the number of A's with 3 A's. The number 2 got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes with 2 A's. Number 3 got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes with 0 A's. Number 4 got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes with 3 A's. Number 5 got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes with 2 A's. Number 6 got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes with 3 A's. Number 7 got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes with 0 A's. Okay, so we're just going to go by the number of votes first. So it is number 8, which is systems thinking. The next two are psychology and self-improvement, each with self-improvement with 3 A's and psychology with 2 A's, both of which having 7 votes. The next one is number 2, which is, just a second, I lost it again.
That's the comparing 3.
Yes, comparing 3, and that has gotten 6 votes. And then it is the visual arts is the least with 4 votes, but with 3 A's. So that's very strong number of A's. And then we've got the one in the middle is three of them, and that is stoicism, mythology, and learning. Okay, so this is very interesting pattern. Systems thinking clearly is the topmost. So if we just wanted to make it very simple, systems thinking, more of psychology, more of self-improvement, that would be the top 3. I want to put in the 4th one, the 3 parts, because it's so integrative. So those 4 things we're going to do for sure. And that's a good start. I think there is enough over here, enough base to build everything up. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to show you, give me a second, let's see what time it is. Okay, it's about 10 o'clock. So I want to try something. So I think this is actually a very good, excellent conversation. I really love this conversation. Everybody put everything down. And the result is that there's a very clear kind of consensus, which is after a lot of kind of induction. And I think it's going to have, all of this, systems thinking, psychology, and self-improvement, and these 3 things are going to definitely have tremendous attendance and engagement and things like that. All of them have legs for, doing series on them. So I'm very happy with this entire process. Now, I want to do something. I just want to see if anybody has any comments, general comments about this process. Just try to keep it very brief. And then I actually want to try out that 3 thing because it's so intriguing. I don't want to wait anymore. I want to try the 3 things on these lists. Okay, we're going to do this idea of focusing on 3 things on this list of 10. We're going to take 3 of them and we're going to see what we can do with it. Okay, as a game. But I'm just going to ask Maritza and Joe and Evanik because they have the maximum experience running meetups. What do you think about the result here?
I have to say, systems thinking hadn't come to mind for me, but once it was put on the table, it was like, oh yes, naturally, of course. So, and that was kind of for a couple other ones that it just didn't occur to me, like psychology. I'm the one who did the series with Michal Csikszentmihalyi, but I didn't think of it. So I was just delighted to see other people bring it in. And it just seemed like natural that it would become one of the last 8. And it's nice to have other people remind you of things that you find important. It's great.
Wonderful. Evanik, what do you think?
I have to say, after the discussion tonight, I definitely see the pattern that people chose on their top 3. Like Maritza, I am surprised that systems thinking came in as number 1, but it makes sense, because if you think about it, people are looking for a way to apply this to their life. And, so systems thinking, of course, is kind of like, and you hear a lot of people talking about science tonight and different types of sciences, and systems thinking, I think, fits into that. So I am surprised, but it's a good surprise, and it actually could see it. And then when you're talking about psychology and self-improvement were the other two,
Yes.
it actually makes sense, because it's all about applying all these different ideas to life in general. So I think
Wonderful.
those are,
Yeah. Excellent. Joe, what did you think?
I mean, I think the systems thinking one is actually, we have had authors here like Harold and Tom. We could have them back, the actual authors themselves, and we can have representations from Bucky and somebody that
Oh, sure.
represents.
Don't go into details of implementation. We'll
But-
come up with implementation. We're going to work very hard to come up with implementation. What do you think of the result here, that we've zeroed in on these 4 things as
I think that we've done a lot of Bucky lately, so I'm not surprised that systems thinking came up. And I think that the young Jordan Peterson and myth connection was surprising, but good. I thought that was excellent. So I think that those, and then the application aspect of it, I think we're also getting to that, as far as Stroopy and some of the other meetups.
excellent. So what we're going to do now is I want to end with one exercise, just one exercise of taking 3 things. Okay. So how do you do 3 things out of this 10? You already have that one, which is the 4th one, and we're going to apply it to the top 3. What is common? So there are 3 things, 3 fields: field of psychology, field of self-improvement or application of ideas, and there is systems thinking. These are the 3 fields. Okay. I'll let Maritza pose this question. Maritza, you had this idea of taking 3 fields, 3 things. These are the 3 things that I want people to discuss. How do you want to talk about your vision of how 3 things are to be discussed? And we'll go ahead and discuss them now.
Sure, but are you picking the 3 things?
Yeah, those are the 3 things. The 3 top fields that we have chosen.
Systems thinking,
Systems,
learning, and psychology?
No, systems thinking, psychology, and self-improvement.
Self-improvement. I think it's fascinating how all 3 of them are application based, which is kind of interesting. The how we would look at them all together.
Let me go ahead and let me start it off, and you can add.
Perfect.
Okay, because what I want to do is I don't want to answer the question. I just want to pose the question first. Okay, so what we're trying to do in this 3-part is that you have to say, okay, what is this? What is this? And what is this? These 3 things. X, Y, Z. Okay. And then you say, okay, what is common between them? What are the interactions between them? Think of it in an interactive way. To what extent understanding of psychology, relates to self-improvement? To what extent systems theory is dependent on the knowledge of psychology? How is it connected with this? So you're just looking at connections between these three things. You can also make, what is it that is common to all of them? What is it that sets it apart, if you want? So there are these 3 things in front of you, and you're trying to explore connections, similarities, differences, connections, interactions between them. Okay, so that's the game. Okay, so let's start with Maritza. Maritza, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm identifying things I see in common. Things I see in common is they're all tackling the question of how to bring some of our learnings into the realm of the real by action. I see that for all three of them. I see them inviting us to look at it from a first person centric viewpoint as opposed to just general. So those would be the two major things I would put for similarities. If I were to look at differences, it would be, I think the psychology is more of a, this is things that were done in the past. Self-improvement is we're going to make up things to do in the future. And the system thinking is the thread that's going to wind the two other ones together. That kind of what you would think.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Folks, go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you would like to share. Bill, I noticed you have an exclamation mark. I don't know whether you wanted to talk about that or something else, but this is what we're talking about. If you would like to talk about this, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, so everything's a system, including our lives. So even the example that Kurt provides with us in a market and how exactly that we get our food and supply chains and things along those lines. As far as self-improvement, how do you actually manage that system much better? So in a very practical sense, like what are some of the things that you could do, in order to make your life a little bit easier? And so the other part is, psychology, and that's understanding yourself and becoming more aware of yourself and your abilities. So therefore you can then maximize them. So I think the idea of looking at everything as a system and including in your daily life, looking at the psychology aspect of it, your personality, how to compensate for whatever your personality is. And then from there, you can actually improve. So you can actually start to develop habits, specific habits. And that's where things like very practical things like journaling, we've talked about here extensively, especially in the past, to discover patterns. And so that we would actually be able to then pinpoint what our issues, and we've taken the Jungian personalities test so we understand ourselves better, and then seeing how we fit into a team system. We talked about Ray Dalio as well. So I think that that's also how our skill sets work with others. So those are very practical ways that I see the connections between those three that could work together.
Excellent. Next up is DLJ, followed by Bill. DLJ.
Yeah, there's quite an interesting connection between them, and also so very different. Self is pretty much ignorant of the systems that create that self. Systems are selfless. Psychology, in my mind, is a largely failed attempt to get from one to the other.
Thank you. Thank you, DLJ. Next up is Bill.
This is a fascinating exercise, Shrikant. My contribution would be this. At least one common element between the three would be the distinction between process metrics and outcome metrics. So in self-improvement, for example, a process metric would be, am I following the diet, to improve my weight? And the outcome metric would be like what my weight is when I weigh myself on a scale. Okay. In psychology, for example, a process metric would be which meetups am I going to on Stoicism or Taoism, and then an outcome metric would be, metrics for it improving the way my psychology works. Kind of like the distinction between process and outcome metrics is like a distinction between input and output metrics. And then in systems, probably any system you could talk about would similarly have input process metrics and output outcome metrics. And the underlying commonality is this notion of reflective practice that was mentioned a few weeks ago in a Bucky meetup. When I forget his name, I think it might have been Kirby. He put in a link in the chat on reflective practice. Reflective practice has 3 kind of rules of thumb for how to do any practice, which is an ongoing repetitive process with these process metrics, and reflective practice has 12 process metrics. And the final point I'll make is this: the idea is to fine tune the process rules of the road, depending on whether they're producing the outcomes that are desired. And if they're not producing the outcomes that are desired, go back and tweak the process rules of the road, tweak the diet, tweak the workout routine, tweak which psychology meetups I go to. But the idea is that there's an optimal set of process metrics, or whatever it is, inputs, reflective practices, rules of the road to follow, depending on that maximize the outcome. And dialing into what those rules of the road should be for one's reflective practice or diet or workout routine is an iterative process back and forth, be it in self-improvement or psychology or any system. So that's it. I'll stop there.
Okay, give me just a minute. What I want to do.
Oh, the suspense. Leaving us hanging.
Hey, DLJ, was your comment coming from the fact that you're a computer programmer?
No, I'm a best practice service management governance. It's process metrics I teach that stuff. Yeah. Now you're talking my language, man.
From your experience in administration and governance.
Yeah, IT management and governance, right? So it's process metrics, governance metrics.
All right.
Okay.
What I want to do is I want to try this one more time. I'm going to start this off, and Maritza, in about 10 minutes, I will need to leave, but you can continue. What's that?
No, I have to go.
Oh, you have to go?
I have family in from out of town.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. So I just want to give you the task. You can do it yourself. Okay. What we did here was with respect to fields. Okay, you can do the same thing with respect to individuals. So let's look at, for these 3 fields, individuals that we have studied. So in systems, we are looking at Bucky. Okay, so take Bucky as one. In psychology, the deepest person we have studied person we have studied in depth is Carl Jung, depth psychology. So there is Bucky, there is Carl Jung, and one of the largest series that we have done on self-improvement is called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Okay, so you take Bucky, Carl Jung, and Outwitting the Devil and do the same thing. Now do this at home, and you do this at home. It's okay. It's very safe. It can produce unpredictable results, but it's worth doing. But what I'm saying is that this really has legs. So for example, if you look at these 3, right, the outwitting the devil, the core idea of outwitting the devil is the difference between drifting and intention, direction, and how it is a transformative issue at the core of an individual psychology. So you have to move towards, you have to say what is most important and go towards that in a willful way, as opposed to drifting. This is like, don't just use system 2, don't just use system 1 and be reactive, use system 2 to direct. yourself, and then use system one as a support for it. So that would be the Kahneman version of it. The Jung version of it is in the filth it would be found. You have to go through hell to fight your discomforts in order to make real improvement. If you want to do Gospel of John, then it would be that you have to, carry your cross, leave aside the old man and create the new man. It's a, death and resurrection. Or you have to let, Jordan Peterson would be, you have to let your ideas die, though they are like people to you. So you can take all of that psychology part and you can see that it is just in the same direction as the self-improvement. When you come to Bucky at a systems level, what he's saying is that you can find the trim tab, things that can change, small things that can change, or you can substitute the system by building something side by side without actually modifying it, which will make it obsolete. These are the two ways of actually doing self-improvement at the systems level. So there is just so much richness that can be done with this exercise. So folks, this is just great. So thank you so much. And I really like all the suggestions here. These 4 we are going to run with as the first new things that will integrate into the schedule. They'll be integrated into the schedule. They're not replacing anything, but they will slowly get integrated into it. But I'm not forgotten the other ones as well. And I'm going to, really look forward to all of this. And special thanks to Maritza, Joe, and Evanik for being the kind of the co-organizers here and doing as much of the all the work that you do. So thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who shows up and the level of comments. All right, good night, everybody. Bye.